Who truly decided that immediately after reaching the age of 60, you absolutely have to start losing your precious memory? Who truly signed that significant paper, that document which supposedly states your physical body absolutely has to become rigid and stiff, or your precious eyes inevitably have to fail, and your inherent joy must completely fade away into nothingness? They have successfully sold us the pervasive idea that the process of aging is an inevitable, continuous downhill slope, leading to decline. Inevitable. As if we became an old classic car, destined simply for the desolate junkyard and slowly falling completely apart. But no, that's not how it is at all. And today I'm here to clearly tell you that they have deliberately lied to you completely. Aging is not merely the simple passing of years. Of course, without a shadow of a doubt, the passage of time certainly helps, but aging, in its true reality, is actually a complex and intricate whole set of communication errors and breakdowns. It's a technical failure in the instruction manual you were given the day you were born. And now think a little about that manual. You were given a truly perfect and comprehensive book, a remarkable book that meticulously explains in great detail exactly how to effectively repair your damaged liver, how to skillfully generate new, healthy skin, and how to consistently keep your brilliant and active mind in an optimal, highly functional state. For a while, that book reads well. Your childhood, your adolescence, your youth. But then the pages started to fade. And not because the book had gotten old, no, simply because without realizing it, you started spilling coffee on it, and also, without thinking much of it, you left it out in the sun, and I'd almost say treated it with a bit of disdain. Well, since that's precisely the way it truly is, and it genuinely happens to almost all of us, and it's not always easy for us to fundamentally change, today what we are going to meticulously do is deeply explore inside ourselves to diligently try to accurately diagnose the underlying problems. We're going to delve deeply down into the very basement of our fundamental biology, and in that comprehensive way, we will truly be able to fully appreciate and clearly understand what the profound effects are of precisely what I was just telling you about. And once we're deeply situated within the confines of the mysterious basement, we will be able to fully discover precisely what truly transpired that ultimately made that once magnificent manual we had completely stopped being just as remarkably effective. But that's not all. We're additionally going to meet a person who plays a truly special and significant role in all of these intricate processes, the talented pianist, a key figure. He is the crucial one who ultimately decides whether your entire body truly sounds like a beautiful masterpiece or perhaps like a discordant, out-of-tune orchestra. The way he plays. The piano in its role will actually be very significantly important in how the entire orchestra ultimately sounds and performs. Stay with me. We are actively exploring this situation together, and what we are carefully trying to do is find the precise original switch that initially opened the door to the underlying problems. I think that's something you're interested in. Well then, let's start with the cells. We're going to go down to the very foundation of our body, to its most intimate part. We are made up of millions of cells, as you know. And then think that inside each one, there's something like a master software. And that software allows us to become something like the most powerful computer in the universe. You and me. That incredibly complex computer, every single millisecond, sends out literally billions of intricate commands to close that open wound, to produce vital energy, and to diligently clean up that cellular waste. And as often happens with these kinds of advanced and sophisticated computers, the significant problem they invariably have is that their complex software is almost always constantly under relentless cyber attack from various malicious sources. You see, the reality is that it receives something like 10,000 impacts every day. Think about that. The radiation from your phone, pesticides, dirty air, or even something much simpler, the stress from that email you received but don't want to read. Try to truly picture yourself in the middle of this complex situation. Your body, fully and acutely aware, tries to patch things up to mend the damage, but over time, these temporary patches start to have significant errors or critical malfunctions. It's very much like a mischievous ghost or an unseen entity stealthily entering your personal computer system and then deliberately starting to change the essential keys on your keyboard, causing widespread disruption and confusion. And where it used to say health, now it says chaos. Well then, that master software is your DNA. That's the fundamental code found in the nucleus of the cell, right there at the center of the cell. And the letters of that code are your genes. Now that all this has been explained, here comes some important information. Those genes of yours, they're like the keys of a piano. And they're there, like intricate, fixed keys deeply embedded within your very cells. And those essential keys, quite obviously, truly need a skilled pianist so that beautiful, harmonious music can be wonderfully created with them. A few minutes ago, or rather just a moment ago, I talked to you about the importance of this person for your health and, of course, your longevity. Who is the pianist? Who could that pianist be? You. You are truly the talented pianist. And now, pay very close attention once again, because what truly comes next is going to utterly surprise and astound you as well. As a consequence of what I just told you, understand this. Your physical body may indeed hold the crucial key for understanding a particular disease, but if you, as the skilled pianist, consciously decide not to actively play it, that potential disease will remain a silent sound that is regrettably never truly heard or acknowledged in your entire life. In other words, you are absolutely not predestined to suffer from it. Science calls this fascinating epigenetics, often using technical terms. Epigenetics is, in essence, the branch of biology that investigates precisely how gene expression is regulated and how it should be effectively and appropriately done, without changing the DNA sequence. That is, so you understand it better. It's about what needs to be done, not to change the text, which is already written, but what the genes say. The genes. In precise technical terms, epigenetics is the fascinating branch of biological science that meticulously studies how gene expression is carefully regulated and how this regulation should be effectively done without fundamentally changing the underlying DNA sequence itself. In other words, what needs to be done? Not to fundamentally change the text, that is to say, what the genes inherently communicate, but rather to be able to effectively change and consciously decide. Please pay close attention to this crucial point and precisely decide which specific genes are actively turned on and which are deliberately turned off. And not only that, but also to be able to accurately adjust the overall intensity with which this intricate process can be successfully accomplished. And who influences this whole process? Nutrition, stress, sleep, physical activity, emotions, and also the environment, the chemical environment and the social environment. But pay attention, because there's a key point. In all of this, there's a big advantage. Epigenetic mechanisms can change throughout life, as I mentioned. And you might be wondering what you need to do to make them change. It's easy to understand. Then, of course, you have to put it into practice. It's about making sustained changes to your habits and your biological contexts. And this information I've just given you is truly important. Today we're in a video with complicated things, but also with very important things. You see, as I was saying, for many of you, this is probably a surprise. The problem is not, and never was, your DNA. In other words, you weren't born to have a disease like the one your father had or your grandmother had. So, as you can see, this isn't just a family thing. No, that's not the case. And that's not how it is. Even if the disease, it's true, it may be true that it's written in your genes. You, as the pianist, have to make sure to play the music without hitting that key, without waking it up, without turning it on. But what is often the problem? That you, the pianist, are tired, intoxicated, and have probably even forgotten the sheet music, and you ignore what's written in that manual because of forgetfulness, lack of attention, lack of knowledge, or even because you're in a hurry. You have so many things to do. Well, today I am truly here to gently remind you of that important fact and also to clearly remind you precisely how you really need to skillfully play those musical keys. I'm going to explain it to you. Put another way, if DNA is the software, telomeres are the timer. We've already talked about this. Think about your shoelaces. Do you see that little plastic cap at the end that keeps them from fraying? Well, your DNA has exactly the same thing. Every single time your body's cells divide to keep you feeling young and vibrant, that tiny protective piece of plastic that diligently safeguards them gets a little bit shorter. And that, in essence, is your biological countdown. In other words, your natural aging process. But pay attention, listen, because this is very important. You have control of the clock. It's true that it's only partial control, but there is control and you have it. It's just like with your wristwatch. You have the watch, but you control the hours. Or just like with your car. When you buy it, you don't decide what engine it came with from the factory. But what you do decide is, once you take it out of the dealership, whether you're going to drive it at 90 when it's still cold, or if you're going to change the oil on time. Well, in the case we're talking about, you don't control the number of telomeres that's given, nor do you control the fact that telomeres shorten, that's part of their structure. You also don't control the material your watch was made from. Remember, it could be plastic, steel, or gold. Well then, going back to your body, and this is what really matters, you actually can influence and have control over the rate of wear and tear. And this is the key. You can also influence the degree of collateral damage and the balance between repair and destruction. This is fundamental and moreover gives it a scientific basis to everything I was telling you, that aging is above all a problem of communication, not of years. Science has shown that stress is not just something in your head. Stress is a real acid that eats away at the plastic of your genes. And in fact, it has been more than proven that people who live under constant distress burn their telomeres at a dizzying speed. In a very short time, they become 10 years older. You see them a few months ago, you see them later, and you're surprised. That's precisely what happens with overwhelming stress, with debilitating fear. Each and every instance you allow fear to gain control, you're slowly cutting another vital portion from your own precious life. It is not time that truly ages you. What ages you is the profound lack of inner peace. It indeed ages you, and we will further come back to this. What ages you is the significant lack of vital voltage within your system. And the conclusion to all of this is actually very simple. You can't change the software, you can't stop the timer, but you can. Decide under what conditions the system operates. Remember that. You can. You can decide the conditions. And that's the key, and above all, the strength that you now know you have. The question is very simple. Are you going to use it, or are you going to disregard it? But however, let's move on. What happens when the plastic on the cord runs out? The cell can no longer effectively divide itself and replicate. That's it. But instead of simply dying and completely disappearing from existence, so that a young and clean cell can take its place, what many of these cells do when they die is just stay there. And there, in that state, they become what are called zombie cells. Cells that exist but no longer work for you. And that's not the worst part. The worst part is that they start to scream, to make noise, to cause problems with their presence. They send out signals of panic to the healthy cells around them and infect them. It's like having a neighbor who doesn't clean their house, lets the garbage rot, and ends up filling the whole building with rats. We've all known someone like that. Well, those zombie cells in your body do exactly the same thing and become the spark that ignites inflammation. Not only do they make a mess, they also take up space, a space where new strong cells should be. And you can absolutely and unequivocally blame them for being the primary and undeniable cause of the insidious and gradual start of your metabolic death, a slow and detrimental process that truly undermines your overall health and future well-being. They are indeed the primary culprits that frequently cause that persistent brain fog you often wake up with on some mornings, the nagging chronic pain that simply won't go away, and that profound, overwhelming exhaustion you find yourself unable to effectively hide, even after diligently drinking 3 strong, steaming coffees in a row, one after another. What I'm telling you is pretty serious. Your entire building is completely full of unauthorized occupants, and as long as you absolutely do not manage to get rid of them, then no medicine will have its full effect. And you might say, what a perspective you're giving me. But there's nothing like facing things as they are, and above all, understanding them. Well, now we're at rock bottom, in the basement of your biology that I mentioned to you. We've looked at the software, erased. We've seen the clock running out and the zombies that are dirtying your house. All of this is the spark that ignites your premature aging. This is what I call the original switch. That's the title of the video. Everything that worries you today started here, in this instruction manual that it seems no one knows how to read anymore. And the one I mentioned at the beginning, but now that you already know the different ghosts that live in that basement and can identify them, we can start turning on the lights, shedding light on the situation. Because in the very next video, we are truly going to see precisely how these insidious zombies and how your vital power plants that were unfortunately left completely turned off are actively creating a truly profound and detrimental metabolic tomb deep inside your entire body. But we will also thoroughly explore exactly why your internal engine has completely run out of essential fuel and, most importantly, how to effectively get it powerfully going again with renewed vigor. In short, we've successfully identified the problem, we've concentrated our efforts on it, and now we're ultimately going to find the solution. The rebuilding is underway, and I trust you'll stay with me on this journey. As I always tell you, keep moving forward, always forward. And I'll see you in the next video.